about with Jeannie, Robin Williams. And any time that someone very famous commits suicide, it seems like that there are several after that. People thinking that's the way for them to go, unfortunately. And suicide contagion is a real thing. It's something else we need to worry about. So we have to be very careful how we deal with suicides. I know we experienced one here a few years back, and it was around homecoming time. And the friends and the parent of the student who had committed suicide wanted us to have like a photo type thing in the homecoming parade to commemorate this student's life. And we couldn't do that. And they couldn't understand why. But this was why. You know, in some folks' mind, they may say, hey, I want that for me. You know. And then if you do it for one and you don't do it for another one, then other people get upset. It just leads to bad things. So that's why we can't do those kinds of things. I want you to just watch this next video. It's really geared toward parents, but since we are technically the parents of these students when they come in our door, listen to this, please.
I have my ups and downs, just like anybody else.
Maybe more than anybody else.
I can be hard to figure out.
And I like my privacy. I don't want you looking over my shoulder all the time.
But you know your kid better than anybody else. And if you think he's acting different than usual,
Acting really down, crying all the time for no good reason.
Or getting really mad, not able to sleep, or sleeping too much.
Shutting her friends out or giving her stuff away.
Acting reckless, drinking, using drugs, staying out late.
Suddenly not doing stuff he used to love.
or doing stuff that's just not like him.
It might be nothing to worry about. It might just be high school.
Or it might be something more. He might be depressed.
Not just feeling down, really depressed.
It might be that your kid is thinking about killing himself. It happens. More than you think. More than it should.
And people say, I have no idea.
I thought it was just a phase he was going through.
I never thought she'd do it.
I wish he'd come to me.
I wish she'd said
I
something.
wish I'd said something.
When it's too late. So if you think your kid's acting different, if she seems like a different person, say something.
Say, what's wrong? How can I help?
And ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself? It doesn't hurt to ask. In fact, it helps.
When people are thinking about killing themselves, they want somebody to ask. They want somebody to care.
Maybe you're afraid you'll make it worse if you ask. Like, you'll put the idea in their head.
Believe me, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
In fact, the best way to keep a teenager from killing herself is to ask, are you thinking about killing yourself?
And what if they say yes?
Or maybe.
Or sometimes,
Well, here's what you don't say.
that's crazy.
Don't be such a drama
You're
queen.
making too much of this.
That boy's not worth killing himself over. That's not going to solve anything.
You're just trying to get attention.
You're not going to kill yourself. What you do say is,
I'm sorry you're feeling so bad.
How can I help? We'll get through this together.
Let's keep you safe.
a lot of people think about killing themselves. Adults and kids. Most of them never try it, but some of them do. So if your kid says,
I'd be better off dead.
I can't live with this.
I'm gonna kill myself, take her seriously. Find someone she can talk to about it. Someone who knows how to help.
Sometimes kids want to kill themselves because something happened. A breakup, a failure. But sometimes it goes deeper, and it's not going to go away by itself.
Get some help. Talk to your doctor.
Or a counselor at school.
Or your minister.
But don't just let it drop.
And make sure that your kid always has someone to turn to. Someone he trusts.
Make a list together. Write them. 3, 4, 5 names.
Put a suicide hotline number on there too.
Have him keep that list in his wallet, so he always knows where to turn.
Be sure your home is safe.
If you have pills she could use to hurt herself, lock them up.
If you have a gun, don't just lock it up. Get it out of the house. Bullets too.
And one more thing. If you think your kid might be about to hurt himself, don't leave him alone.
Take him to the emergency room.
Call 911 if you have to.
We all have our ups and downs, but sometimes it's more than that.
If you think something's wrong, the only way to find out is to ask.
Ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself?
Don't wait until you're sure. Trust your gut, because it never hurts to ask.
And it can make a big difference.
All the difference.
In your kid's life.
That number cards that we will give one to every student to put in their wallet on the day that we do the suicide prevention. It has that number on there so that they can call. What do you think about the videos? Any comments? I really like that one too, Miranda. It really tells us not to take what they tell us and blow them off. You know, if they break up with someone and they've gone together 6 months, that's an eternity for them. You know, that's like being married for 6 years to us. And it's hard not to just say, oh, honey, you're going to have 20 more boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever. It's so hard not to do that. But to them, it's real and it's now and it hurts. So we need to try, to be empathetic and listen and let them, talk it out. Okay. Don't know where to go. If you push the arrow at the bottom, I'll know where. Okay. Go again. There we go. Okay. Thank you, sir, for being patient. Research shows that students who feel connected to their school, this makes sense. You all hear this in other trainings you have. Students that feel connected, they feel like they're a part of the school, they are less likely to commit suicide. They're less likely to be depressed. If they feel like just one of you guys, just one person is happy to see them that day, says good morning to them, smiles at them, that might be the only smile they get all day long. That might be the only good morning that they ever hear. We don't know what they're living with. We don't know what's going on with them. But if they can have that one person, and ideally it would be a parent, both parents ideally, I suppose, but it could be a teacher, it could be you, it could be a counselor, it could be even me. It could be, as long as it's somebody, they're going to be okay. And at school, while they're here, think about all the people they come in contact with. They may go home and parents are working night shift and they may go home to watch TV and that's all they've got. Mix their own ramen noodles and sit there in front of a TV and that's it. Whether they may be using, on their phone or whatever. But face to face, they have to face us every day. We have to face them every day. Their friends are here. We've got guidance counselors here. We've got lots of folks that can help out. And protective factors, you probably know more about those than I do. But this connectedness was seen as the #1 protective factor, feeling that they were a part of. Students that we have that are a part of our clubs, that are in the book club or in tattoo or a basketball player, a cheerleader, dance team, anything that we have, if they feel like they're a part of what's going on, then that's going to help them. And they've got other people there, coaches and folks that they can talk to. Students who feel victimized, and please look at this if you can, by peers or by teachers. By peers or by teachers have an elevated risk for suicide. And it could be something that you don't even realize you're doing. It could be your body language. It could be just the tone of voice. And maybe you're having a bad day. We all have them. So just try to be careful. Try to be careful. Be gentle with each other. Be gentle with our kids. Does that make sense? We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know what they've experienced. I don't know what you all come from. And you all don't know the same about me. This to me is interesting. 90% of teens who die by suicide, it makes sense that they already have a mental health issue like depression, right? And then we put that with alcohol or with prescription drugs that they're not supposed to be taking, that aren't prescribed to them. That makes it even worse. And it's almost always one of those two things, the alcohol or the drugs, combined with the depression. And like Dr. Phil said on that little clip, they think the world's going to be better off without them. And that's just not true. If you can get them past that, if you can talk to them and make them understand And I think we've done this in the last few years since we've been doing this. I really believe we've saved some lives. That's why I get so passionate about it. Because if anybody had told me I would be standing up in front of the teachers and talking, no way. And I'm still shaking. But I'm passionate about this. I know that we've saved lives. I feel like that we've really done some great things with this. So that's why I keep pushing for it, and I keep wanting us to do, what we've been doing and keep it up. And I know it's hard. It was hard for me the first time I ever asked a student, are you thinking of killing yourself? It kind of got stuck here somewhere. Because I'm looking at a 15-year-old kid thinking, they can't be thinking about it. What have they got to worry about? They're 15 years old. They've got the world by the tail. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So, and be sure the way that you ask them straight out. Don't do like the first time I did and say, you're not thinking of killing yourself, are you? Because that, with that, they're going to say, well, of course not. Of course not. And I think it was my own problem that I didn't want them to say yes, because then I would have to figure out something to do with the yes. So I've learned a lot too. But you do have to just flat out ask them. And I've already asked 2 students this year. This is their 13th day of school. I've already asked 2 students this. So, protective factors, family cohesion. Is that mom, dad, brother, sister, puppy dog, kitty cat, white picket fence? Doesn't have to be, does it? It could be grandma that lays down the law. It could be an aunt, or an uncle, whoever they live with. Especially like in high school, we have kids that live everywhere. We have kids that do couch jumping. Every 2 weeks on somebody else's couch. That's when you got to start thinking that is a risk and not a protective factor. Good coping skills. How many of our kids have good coping skills? Well, some do and some don't. So think about the ones who don't. How will they deal with life's ups and downs? And we all have them. Support from teachers and other adults. We talked about that already. They need to know that we care about all of them. Not just the ones that are popular, not just the ones that make the great grades. Even though those kids need to be watched too, because if they're high achievers, if they get a B and they've always had A's, that can really be a big deal for them. Positive relationship with peers. Go back again.
Sorry.
You want me to move faster?
Yep.
Impulse control. Do we have any students who have impulse control or do not have impulse control? Is that the question? If you don't have good impulse control, you might do something and say, well, I'll show them. And then there you go. Something tragic, really tragic can happen. Problem-solving skills. Self-confidence, I think, comes with time. But we need to try to build that up in our students. Stable living environment, like we talked about a while ago, going from couch to couch, that's not stable. Access to mental health care. I just found out this week that our comp care is closing down. I'm very distraught about that. I send a lot of families there to get help. My own family is going there to get help. So, now our folks in Mercer will have to go to Danville. Yes, ma'am. And so that's going to be another, what if they don't have transportation? What if they don't have, more and more questions and more barriers that we'll have to deal with. Religious beliefs that discourage self-harm, like I said earlier, if, there are Christian beliefs and different beliefs that if you hurt yourself, that's against God's law. If they're a devout person and they believe, they're religious, that may be something that is a protective factor for them. And then sports team participation. I can't say that enough. Just being active in something at school. That is a big protective factor. Okay. Do you have any questions about any of that? I think it's pretty clear. One more. Risk factors. Previous attempt, if they tried to commit suicide before, well, of course that's a gigantic red flag waving in the wind. You may not know that. We may not have that information. So, and that way we might have to very confidentially talk to each other. Sexual abuse, how many of our kids suffer that? Dr. Angel was just talking about that and the signs of that. Feelings of hopelessness. Have you ever heard a kid, well, there's no hope for me? No, Mercer County, and I'm going to be in Mercer County. This is my life. I have nothing to look forward to. You know, my parents were raised here. My grandparents were raised here. What's there for me? That feeling of hopelessness. School problems. I really believe that every student wants to do well. You can call me names or whatever you want to if you don't agree with me. But I think they don't think they want to do well. And if they have school problems and maybe they can't read as well as other students, maybe they can't, interpret what you're trying to teach them. That could cause them to be depressed. Another risk factor. Access to firearms, once again. That comes back up. Because 2/3 of every suicide are from firearms. The others are mainly with prescription drugs, overdoses. Warning signs, making a plan. That's one of the things we talk about. Well, I've talked about with students, which I'm not a mental health professional at all. But if they tell you they've made a plan and they've written it down, and they're thinking next Saturday when mom and dad take my little sister to the ball game, that's where I'm going to do it. When they're not at home. That's another gigantic red flag. And we may have some of those that tell us that this coming week when we do our student program. And so that would be something that the school counselors and the folks that are here to help us would talk to that student about and get out of them. But that's another step toward getting it done. Saying things like, I wish I was dead, I wished I'd never been born. We have students that come and sit down beside me and tell me their parents have told them, or their mother has told them, I wish I had an abortion. I had never had you. I can't believe you're my child. And it was all I could do to just pinch myself to stop from crying. Because how do you deal with that? Your parents are supposed to be your number one cheerleaders, right? But if you don't have that, then they've got to come to someone like us. We've got to be their cheerleader. Changes in eating and sleeping, that can be being a teenager, right? But if it goes on for more than 2 weeks, maybe it's something more. Loss of interest in activities, they don't want to, like they love Miss Snell's class, they love to draw, but all of a sudden they just could care less. Or Miss Hassel's class, they love to sing, they just don't have it in them anymore. So you can tell. Especially like at the beginning of the school year, you're learning your students. Some of them you already know, but as the year progresses, you'll be able to tell. It's not normal for that child. Frequent complaint of physical symptoms, that would be like Nurse Dana. She sees them a lot and they just have headaches or stomach aches, and it's not really anything that you can put your hand on. It's not the flu, it's not this or that, but they just don't feel good. That could be another warning sign. Preoccupation with death, marked personality change, giving away personal possessions, difficulty concentrating. These kind of things we will see in if you have the SOS program, if that's what your grade level is using, you will see this in the program that we offer to the students next week. Okay? Stacia talked about some of this, the legal consequences. Courts have ruled that schools must provide supervisory care for students, and that we are their parents when they walk in our door until they walk out our door at 3:05. We are responsible, and we can be held responsible. That's a big task. That's why I've always said over the top of the door for the staff to come in, it should say none but the brave. Because if you decide to be a teacher, you have got to be brave, to be willing to do that, and to take that upon yourself. So that's why I think so highly of all of you guys. Okay. Programs that we use Lifelines for the 9th grade. We use SOS, which is Signs of Suicide, for the 10th grade. We use More Than Sad for the 11th, and then an SOS booster for the 12th. So 4 years, 4 different programs. Before we had one program, and every year they saw the same thing. And it got to be kind of old. I know it did. So now they finally come out with different programs, and there are more coming out all the time. Now that people realize that this teen suicide stuff is for real. You know, it's serious stuff. In Florida and Maryland, schools have been found liable. I don't know why that's out of context, but for not notifying a parent about a student talking about committing suicide. That's why, and Dr. Angel mentioned this, when a student fills out that form, everybody will get a form. Every student in the building. Believe me, I made 850 copies and killed a bunch of trees this week. But every student will get a copy of that. And if they indicate on that form that they want to speak to someone, we cannot let them go home that day without speaking to someone. If they get on that bus or they get in their car and they drive off and we have not done that, we are liable. If they hurt themselves, we can be held liable. That's why we are in such a rush to, once you set your forms outside your door, for those of you that have done this before, that's why we're in such a rush to get those forms back down to the counselors so they can go through them and pick out the ones that want to speak to someone. And usually we have between 40 and 60 students that indicate they want to speak to someone.
And the tribe will talk about this more once you guys are in the specific programs, but it is so important that you get the students' names on every single sheet of paper. You don't have to look at it, read it, and score it, or anything, we do all that. But if we don't have a student's name and somebody in your class has indicated that they have thought about suicide in the past week, and we have no idea who it belongs to, we are trying to scramble and we're going through kids, cross-referencing things, seeing who's in the class, trying to read handwriting and figure out who it is.
And just glance at it, we've had students in the past put things like Daffy Duck, things like that. And I know, when you deal with these kind of situations and these kind of, suicide prevention it's hard to talk about. And if someone's thinking about it, or they could be uncomfortable, maybe they had someone in their family that did commit suicide and they don't want to talk about it. Maybe they're feeling bad, and their way out maybe to make a joke. So I want you to watch this, please, and I hope we are never in this position, ever. Can you click on my arrow, please?
She said she's going to friends.
Nobody's back there.
Mr. Garrett, you're needed in the auditorium. Mr. Garrett, you're needed in the auditorium.
Like I said, we don't ever want to be in this situation. Can you hear?
What you do? It's all the way up.
Can we start that over, please, guys?
There may not be sound with them, because it should have not been there. And that's as loud as it goes.
And that's as loud as it goes.
It's
as loud as it goes.
They took parents, telling them a student shot and killed himself at school, and that the lockdown had been lifted and kids could go home early.
Get ready for an explosion.
Started a run to pick up their kids. KXAN's Kevin Schwaller has more on what was running through their minds.
Parents lined up to make sure their children were safe. Some knew what happened here at Linear High School. Linda Joseph, however, left for the school with only this.
My daughter called me and told me that there was a shooting at the school. So I couldn't believe it. I was in bed, so I jumped right out of bed and came right over here to see what the problem was.
And when she got here, police and EMS were parked around the school. Students had been let go for the day. Her granddaughter was okay physically. Still, the initial word of a gun and a shot at the school worried Joseph.
First, I teared up a little bit because I thought something might have happened to her and she didn't really want to let me know.
Joseph says there was a calm in the chaos. Parents weren't yelling. Students were going home. It's now about dismissal time, and the parents that were out here on the the sidewalk earlier are now gone. They've taken their children home, and the staff that would normally be saying goodbye to the students for the day are inside the building in a staff meeting discussing how to talk to students about what happened when they come back to school. And home is where Joseph will be trying to talk with her granddaughter about what happened and how to cope.
And to pray most of all. And God bless her every day when she comes to school and when she leaves, so that she gets back safely.
At Linear High School, Kevin Schwartz, KXAN News.
Now, counselors who are part of a special crisis team will be here on campus until 6 o'clock tonight to help any students and teachers who need it. Tomorrow morning, it's a normal start time for students, but there are still many unanswered questions, including just how a student got a gun on campus and were there any warning signs. Live in North Austin tonight, Aaron Cargile, KXAN News.
And for more information on how AISD is handling this case and crisis numbers, you can head to our website, kxan.com.
Pretty sure that was in close to Austin, Texas, I think. And I'd like to say that that's an anomaly, that that's just one. But guys, if you go online and you go to YouTube and you start looking it up, Detroit, Chicago, most of the big cities, but kids bringing guns to school and committing suicide in the school. In the school. I can't think of anything like that. This is something that we talk about with the SOS program too, is secrets need to be shared sometimes. And that's so hard to get teenagers to talk to. I mean, some of y'all are a lot younger than me, they might see you as a peer, but to talk to somebody old like me, they might not want to because I'm an adult. But we need to convince them that they need to let us know if they hear a friend or someone talking about committing suicide. Because they can't handle it on their own. They cannot do it. And that it's not ratting out somebody. Positive relationships, we talked about this. It prevents violence, prevents suicide and bullying. So all those times when you don't want to be out there in the hallway in the mornings, and believe me, I know, but every time you say good morning, every time you smile, that just might be that one student that needed to hear it that day. Okay. It is underreported and undertreated. Why do you think it's underreported? Are afraid to report it? We could be. I know our numbers here in Mercer County have been higher than those counties around us. But one thing that kind of skews our numbers is a lot of times in Mercer, here in our county, if a student or a young person, doesn't have to be a student, a young person commits suicide, they will transport that person, or even an older person, they will transport them to Lexington, to UK. And so they pronounce them dead over there. And so that person will go on their numbers rather than being put on Mercer County's numbers. Does that make sense? Do you see how that could happen? So our numbers are really higher than what I think are reported even. I mean, I've asked people the last, since 2006, I guess. Please tell me why, tell me what we can do, tell me why. I've had people tell me all kinds of theories from back to Fort Heron days when the Indians were here to I don't know what all. And there's just something ingrained in people from Mercer County that I'm like, I've had people from Mercer since 1774. Research does show that adolescents will honestly answer you if you ask them directly. Like I said, don't do like I did at first and say, you're not going to kill yourself, are you? You're not going to hurt yourself. Because that makes them say, no, of course not, Miss Pike, I wouldn't do that. Ask them directly, are you thinking of killing yourself? And look them directly in the eye. That's hard to do. It's hard to do. For you, it may be easy, but it's not for me. Even yet, and I've done it several times. Okay? Once again, the programs that we use are Lifelines, SOS, More Than Sad, and then the SOS Booster. Okay. Lifelines is a school-based suicide program. All of the programs that we use are research-based. We need to use those. You all know about research-based curriculum and things like that. Years ago, when we first started this, the only one we had was SOS, and that's why that was the one we used over and over. But like I said, now there are more programs coming forward, and